Hello, I'm Holly Tarquini. I'm the Executive Director of FilmBath, and this is Chris Baker, who is FilmBath's founder. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Holly.
Chris, tell me first of all about how FilmBath came into being.
Film Bath, gosh, a long time ago, 31 years ago. It was shortly after I moved to Bath. I got involved in the Film Society in Bath, having never been particularly interested in film in the past. Um, but I ended up getting really involved in the technical presentation of the screenings. And one season we had a bit of money left in the bank, so we decided to put on a mini festival over a weekend. We showed 6 French films and we got an amazing response. So then this kind of light bulb went on above my head, and I thought, there's obviously an audience in Bath for these kind of films. Let's set up a proper festival. And at the time there were 6 or 7, I think, 7 commercial screens in Bath. So the scene was primed, so to speak. It was just, the place was just asking for a film festival. And that's when I got in touch with people like Phil Raby and the managers of all the cinemas and said, hey, how about it? Let's try and make this happen.
Amazing, and it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's gone from strength to strength.
yeah.
And
I
more
think
recent, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it was just the moment was right for the idea. You know, everything came together very quickly, very easily. There was a lot of positive energy, and it just took off. Yeah,
Yeah, when something's right, it's easy and it works, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So tell me, more recently you've been involved in Cheltenham Film Festival. Tell me about your involvement in that.
Well, that's right. In 2019, Leslie Sheldon approached Film Bath seeking advice about setting up a film festival in Cheltenham. And I got involved in a sort of advisory capacity. And as I think did Phil initially, we were both programming for the Cheltenham Festival, which successfully ran in 2019 as a physical festival, the inaugural festival. And then, of course, in 2020, looking to repeat the whole thing, we were hit with the COVID lockdown. And at that point in March last year, we decided to turn the whole Cheltenham experience into an online one, which we did very successfully. And so this year is the second online edition of the Cheltenham International Film Festival, third edition overall, but second online edition.
So you're going to tell me your top recommendation for this year's Cheltenham Film Festival. Tell me what your first one is.
Okay, Disclosure is very excited about this film. It's an Australian film. We've got it as the European premiere. It's done very well in Australia. It's caused quite a stir. And the scenario is 2 couples. It's a chamber piece, but it's filmed outdoors in the Melbourne suburbs. And it's 2 couples who come together to discuss an incident which has taken place between their young children. None of them can quite agree what has happened, but it's resulted in the traumatization of one of the children. And so a little bit like God of Carnage, that stage play which was turned into a film by Polanski. These 2 very civilized couples, they're good friends, they come together to discuss in a rational adult way this incident that occurred between the 2 children. And of course it degenerates into a savage mudslinging match of accusation and counter accusation. But it's a very clever film because it touches on so many political and social issues that are current in Australia. This topic of young children leveling accusations against other young children is really hot in Australia at the moment. It's not particularly so here, but there have been several incidents which have been covered in the press there. This film basically deals with how do you know how do you decide whether a very young child, in this case 4 years old, is telling a true story or is just venting their imagination about something. You know, it's really, really tricky ground. And the film is just so, it's just so, it handles very complex issues in a really succinct and direct way. And it's a fantastic drama as well. I was absolutely riveted by it. I think it's a brilliant film.
Brilliant. God, it sounds great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
is. It's very
impossible
good.
to tell whether a 4-year-old is telling the truth.
Yeah, yeah. What are the tools that you use to decide whether this is made up or is it true? And if the accusation is serious, you have to take it seriously.
Yeah,
Yeah, really, really tricky.
brilliant. And what's your next recommendation?
My next recommendation would be A Tale of Three Sisters, which is a Turkish film. It's an absolutely beautiful film. It's set in the Anatolian mountains, very remote settlement, and it involves a family, a father, the mother has died, and three sisters, his three children, each of whom have been sent to the big city to try and make a go of it as a bezlemi. I don't know if I pronounce that correctly, but it's a tradition in Turkey where a poor rural child will be sent as a foster, in a kind of, as a sort of a foster child to live with a more wealthy city dweller and will work and be educated there. In the case of these three sisters, it hasn't worked out. So they've all been returned to this very remote settlement in the mountains. One of them has come back pregnant and has given birth to a child. So she's been married off to a local man to sort of, you know, make that seem more acceptable. And there's one more chance. This doctor comes from the city looking for somebody to foster. And so this brings sibling rivalry to the fore. They're all kind of struggling to be the one who's chosen to return to the big city. But it's the way it's told is just amazing. It's like a 1,000-year-old folk tale, and it feels as if it's been related by a storyteller sitting around we're all sitting around a campfire and listening to this storyteller telling this story. It's wonderfully atmospheric, beautiful cinematography. It really takes you right into the lives of these people. Yeah.
I love films that expose cultures that you have no idea about. And
Yeah.
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 So tell me about your third recommendation.
That would be a small indie film called The Garden Left Behind, which is a very touching portrayal of two Mexican illegal immigrants trying to make a life in New York, a grandmother and her male assigned at birth grandchild who has transitioned. She now refers to herself as Tina. Her grandmother, either through force of habit or because it reminds her of the old days back in Mexico, still refers to her as Antonio. And all of them are quite happy with this. The grandmother is very supportive of Tina's transition. Tina works as a cab driver, and the film is basically about her struggle as part of the trans community. There's an incident in which a fellow trans woman is attacked by the police. This prompts Tina to join a trans protest group, and she becomes more politically involved. It sort of enhances her awareness of her position as a trans woman in New York. It's a beautifully touching film with a very, very delicate performance by the transgender actor who plays Tina. It's a fantastic film.
And what's your last recommendation?
My last recommendation, that would be Aristocrats, which is a triple F rated film. It's about two young women living in Tokyo, one of whom comes from a very aristocratic family, very moneyed. Her future is mapped out, but she throws a sort of a firework into the plan by breaking off with her rich fiancé, which throws her family into turmoil. They're all desperately to see her married off. She fights against this, and they try to match her up with various suitable partners. She fights against it. And at the same time, it's a parallel story of another young woman who is from the sticks. She comes to the city. She's very determined to succeed. She's very bright. She's studying at a university. And their paths cross because they're both interested in the same man, who's he's a very wealthy scion of a wealthy family, and so these normally the paths of these two women would never cross because they come from such distinct social and cultural backgrounds, but they form an unlikely friendship, and it's done so deftly. You know, all the layers of the story are very subtly applied. It's a bit like an Otsu film, you know, very much about family, tradition, and the determination of these two particular individuals to fight against that and find their own way and their own identity. And it's also a sort of a love story about Tokyo. You know, Tokyo itself is beautifully filmed. It's set in the city. It's as much about these two women's relationship with the city as about their friendship. Really, really amazing film.
Brilliant. That sounds great, Chris. Thank you very much. I will put all the links to those films and to Cheltenham Film Festival and how to buy tickets and passes underneath. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.